The moon. Even though we should elaborate a proper good name for our body, as this appellation is a common name for any planetary body naturally orbiting another heavier planet. Why then it was given this exclusivity? Well, because it happens to be the only natural satellite of Earth. Was this just by coincidence? Given that its illumination is revealing to us on Earth its different phases, and we were also informed that this was set for our benefits, and to count periods, hazard has no possibility to be mentioned in this art, could only be one of the creations and a clear sign of the Creator. Continuing on from our previous episode, we can now move to a more difficult task, which is the attempt to erect the lunar calendar using the correspondence given by the generated solar table. The solar cycle of 400 years, or 146,097 days, is confirming the average 365.2425 duration which the Earth takes to complete a full elliptical circle around the Sun. When we consider an exact equality between 300 solar years and 309 lunar years proposed in the solar calendar video, our 146,097 days will correspond to 412 lunar years, meaning 354.60436 days average per lunar year instead of the 354.36707 set by the science community. This means around 97 days difference is occurring in every 412 lunar years from the two calculations, proving that the correspondence 300 solar years for 309 lunars is a close approximation instead of an exact equality. After all, the verse in chapter 18 numbered 25 from where we drafted this correspondence did not use any words meaning equality, but rather said exceeded by 9. In this scenario, we were not able to find a pattern to lay a table of a repeating 412 lunar years as in the solar calendar case. However, we have come with a whole new methodology on how to accurately count the lunar months, yearly wise. The moon was portrayed in the Revelation as being a sign from the many signs in the universe of the God Creator. The complexity of its phases that we should not take for granted may actually be the reason behind such selection. Surah 16 verse 12, "And he has subjected for you the night and day, the sun and moon, and the stars are subjected by his command. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reason." Beside mentioning that all above names are signs of his majesty, he also informed us that he has subjected whatever in the multiverse to his command, the Creator. Surah 7 verse 54, "Indeed, your Lord is Allah, who created the multiverse in 6 periods, and then established himself above the throne. He covers the night with the day, chasing it rapidly, and the sun, the moon, and the stars, subjected by his command. Unquestionably, his is the creation and the command. Blessed is Allah, Lord of the worlds." The revelation lays things simply and clearly a way never seen before it. Not surprising, it quoted at the Surah 59 verse 21, "Had we sent down this Quran upon a mountain, you would have certainly seen it humbled and torn apart in awe of Allah." We set forth such comparisons for people, so perhaps they may reflect. We may actually think that the word sign brings forth only the visible or physical side of things, but in fact it should attract the attention of people of reason or knowledge, as what lays behind the mechanism or the invisible side is much of being a wonder. A parable here is that of a stop sign. An illiterate person would pass it without giving any meaning to it, or a pedestrian, even knowing the driving code, would simply not giving attention to it, judging it none of his concerns, but a driver, a caring one, let's say, will surely watch left and right before crossing through. Reason: he knows the sign was placed to signal him of a potential danger if he does not abide by the rule. The signboard is there after much study of the road condition by the designated authority. The sun being a sign, the moon a sign, the stars, the flying birds, and the universe itself, if not today when technology and space exploration have advanced, who could then in the 7th century know that the physics or the laws of gravity holding the whole thing together should be mentioned as wonders? Surah 13 verse 2. It is Allah who has raised the heavens without pillars that you can see, then established himself on the throne. He has subjected the sun and the moon, each orbiting for an appointed term. He conducts the whole affair. He makes the signs clear so that you may be certain of the meeting with your Lord. The Creator does not use pillars to hold things up. He uses gravity, nor does he use a switch to alternate the day and night, but he uses motions. He did not use covers to shield our planet against space objects' intrusion or solar flares, but he used magnetism. Great is he, the originator of all things. Now back to our task of erecting the lunar calendar, we should beforehand recall a verse from the previous episode, bringing to light the relationship between the sun and the moon and their utilization of counting periods. Surah 10 verse 5. It is he who made the sun a radiant source and the moon a derived light and determined for it phases that you may know the number of years in account. Allah has not created this except in truth. He details the signs for people of knowledge. We have also aforementioned the 29 or 30 days a lunar month contains, and the 12 months a lunar year is comprised with. The year will count either 354 or 355 days in total. It is worth noting that most named lunar calendars in use, from different angle of history, are loony solar ones. Very few, as the Islamic Hijri calendar, are found to be exclusively lunar, based on the moon sighting or say the moon cycle. In the Islamic Hijri calendar, the lunar month is marked by the sighting of the new moon, called crescent, either by the naked eye or recently passed rule by telescope. These two lenses, even when used with the utmost accuracy, could result in a difference of one day, the added eye of course taking the lead to begin the month. Where else could we find ingredients to help us prove this theory and reconcile ancient methods of sighting and modern ways to look into the sky, except from the revelation of the 7th century? The first ingredient: partition of the cosmic day. As we explained it before, this day is a full combination of presence and absence of sunlight, and each part has since been divided into two factions. Surah 91 verses 1 to 4, by the sun and its brightness, and the moon as it reflects it, and the day as it unveils it, and the night as it conceals it. From the last two verses it appears to us that the day and night are unquestionably linked to the sighting of the sun disk, but they too are portioned into slightly and deep darkness or brightness in other verses. Surah 81 verses 17 and 18. And by the night as it closes in, and by the dawn when it breathes, as-subh. The Arabic words al-layl and as-subh both are categorized in the night, part of the cosmic day, the boundary being the sight of the sun disk from the horizon. Surah 93 verses 1 and 2. By the morning sunlight, ad-duha, and the night when it falls still. Surah 92 verses 1 and 2. By the night when it covers, al-layl, and the day when it appears, an-nahar. The words ad-duha and an-nahar in revenge are in the daylight portion from the cosmic day, their timing being between sunrise and sunset. The second ingredient: the two full moons of the lunar month. One may think that a full moon occurs only in the very midst of the lunar month, but in fact there are two such phenomena. The second one is just invisible to our sight, the moon being in between the earth and the sun, in perfect alignment with no reflection to be seen by us. it occurs the time lapse before the sighting of the new crescent, marking the beginning of the waxing gibbous. Surah 84 verses 16 to 20. So I do swear by the twilight, and the night and what it envelops, and the moon when it becomes full, you will surely embark upon state after state. So what is with them they do not believe. Far away from the traditional interpretation of this verse 19, we have here decoded that a same paragraph of the revelation could have different meanings in different times, and both being accurate. You will surely embark upon state after state was once comprehended as stages of life or hereafter, like the passing from life to death, and from death to resurrection, from well-being to sickness, and from sickness to well-being, from poverty to richness, and from richness to poverty, etc., which sounds very okay, but since the preceding verses are about the cosmos, and the very last about the moon, this verse could also take a meaning in the same line of definition. And the moon when it becomes full. The visible or waxing full moon occurs commonly on the 14th of a lunar month, counting 29 days, and on the 15th of a lunar month, counting 30 days, and the invisible or waning full moon occurs commonly on 28th in months of 29 days, and on 29th in months of 30. Then miraculously, what happens when the moon becomes full after each of the two stages? We pass from the gibbous waxing to waning, and vice versa, where the meaning, you will surely embark upon state after state. Now we can all agree that the sighting on the visible waxing full moon is a normal matter for people nowadays, same as for those in the 7th century, but what about the sighting on the invisible waning full moon? That could only be detected with sophisticated telescopes shaping only the presence of the planetary body. Not a single mind in that era of the 7th century could detail such a physic law with such precision. Then, the following verses 20 to 23 were raised to question, who come to know about this wonder. So what is with them they do not believe? And when the Quran is recited to them, they do not prostrate. In fact, the disbelievers persist in denial, but Allah knows best whatever they hide. The third ingredient, marking the start of the new crescent. A new moon does not become visible to the naked eye, or even with a telescope, except when the sun has completely set, and its reddish or yellowish light has started to pull from the horizon. Due to the very thin size of that new crescent, and its very short time to set just after sunset, it is most of the time impossible to sight it with the naked eye. The first night when the moon has completed its waning phase towards waxing, but a telescope in revenge can. Thus a question arises whether a month could be said to start with the exclusive sighting by the added eye, when in fact it is impossible for the communities of the 7th century to manage this count. And we think we have an answer from the Revelation, Surah 74, verses 32 to 37. But no, by the moon, and the night as it retreats, and the morning as it breaks, there is one of the greatest, an alertness for mankind, to whichever of you chooses to take the lead or lag behind. Here again, the revelation has struck one more time, away from the traditional interpretation of this paragraph stating that hellfire is one of the greatest calamities and that it should be a warning to mankind. The second meaning that we have attributed to these verses are also in relation with the moon, when our body is mentioned by, but no, by the moon, the following verses, and the night as it retreats, and the morning as it breaks. Our motions or states of the moon in those particular timings, meaning moon settings or moon risings. There is one of the greatest. The demonstration in this verse could be referred to the period in between, when the moon sets or rises in the two particular mentioned moments. And speaking about the moon, one of its greatest two could only mean one of the two full moons. Then, when we experienced one of the full moons, especially the waning full moon, This is an alert noticing the start of a new moon in the coming hours, where the meaning, an alertness for mankind, or the start of one of the two gibbos, to whichever of you chooses to take the lead or lag behind. Once the moon has completed its full waning cycle, it enters a waxing phase, and by the next sunset, it should appear above the horizon. By definition, when the night starts to draw in, the civilizations who are able to use a telescope could sight it and take the lead to start the new months, but those who do not have the means could only lag behind and sight it with the naked eye after the second sunset. At this point, we surely have to illustrate the many theories we have advanced by concrete manifest proofs from the visible lunar cycle of past calendars. Take for example Saudi Arabia as a location and consider timeanddate.com to retrieve data of the moon and sun calculators and the moon phases for lunation. We can select year 1984 and January 18th for date, sunrise 7:01, waxing full moon 17:05, moonset 6:48, then 7:47 on the next day. For all waxing full moons, the motion of the moon that we have to consider is the setting, the times of the two dates before and after sunrise. We can well notice that the moon is becoming visibly full at 17:05, obviously in the time frame between when the moon has set as the night is retreating 6:48, that is before the sunrise, and after the morning has broken 7:47, that is after the sunrise. For the same year 1984, in month of February, and second date, sunrise 6:58, waning full moon 2:46, moonrise 6:39 the previous day, then 7:22. For all waning full moons, the motion of the moon that we have to consider is the rising, the times of the two dates before and after sunrise. Also, we can notice that the moon is becoming invisibly full at 2:46, obviously in the time frame between when the moon has risen as the night is retreating 6:39, that is before sunrise, and after the morning has broken 7:22, that is after sunrise. Now, when we have to determine the first night of the new crescent, we should in addition consider the timing of sunset and moonset from the particular date. For the same date, 2nd February 1984, sunrise 6:58, sunset 18:10, new moon 2:46, moonrise 7:22, moonset 18:37. We can notice that the moon has risen 24 minutes after sunrise and set just 27 minutes after sunset. It is from the imperative conditions for a new crescent to be cited that the motions of the moon follow that of the sun when rising or setting the same day. While these two major conditions have been met as they precondition the magnitude or size of the moon after waning full, which was fulfilled by the same prerequisites, this new crescent could only be sighted by telescope because of the short timing, 27 minutes, it took to set after sunset. The crescent of February 2nd could then be counted as first night of the lunar month for those using telescopes for sighting, but only the night sky of February 3rd will reveal the new crescent for the naked eye gazers. Consider another example in year 2024, January 25th, sunrise 7, waxing full moon 20:54, moonset 6:52, then 7:35 on the next day. Here again we can notice that the moon is becoming visibly full at 20:54 in the time frame between when the moon has set as the night is retreating 6:52, that is before the sunrise, and after the morning has broken 7:35, that is after the sunrise. For the same year 2024, in month of February and the 10th date, sunrise 6:54, waning full moon 1:59, moonrise 6:33, the previous day then 7:22. Also here, we can notice that the moon is becoming invisibly full at 1:59 in the time frame between when the moon has risen as the night is retreating 6:33, that is before the sunrise, and after the morning has broken 7:22, that is after the sunrise. To date, the new crescent of this month of February 2024, we have sunrise 6:54, sunset 18:15, new moon 1:59, moonrise 7:22, moonset 18:55. The moon has taken 28 minutes to rise after the sun and set 40 minutes after it, giving the go-ahead to sight the new crescent with added eye, but the naked eye would surely flow water before sighting it. For a third example, consider year 2064 and February 3rd. Sunrise 6:57, waxing full moon 0037, moonset 6:28 the previous day, then 7:15. Following the same course, the moon will reach its visible full size at 0037 in the time frame between when it sets as the night is retreating, 6:28, that is before sunrise, and after the morning has broken, 7:15, that is after the sunrise. When we move to date 17, in the same month and year, sunrise 6:50, waning full moon 10:03, moonrise 6:49, then 7:20 on the next day. For this time, the moon will reach its invisible full size at 10:03 in the time frame between when it rises as the night is retreating 6:49, that is before the sunrise, and after the morning has broken 7:20, that is after the sunrise. For the new crescent sighting calculation, we have sunrise 6:50, sunset 18:19, new moon 10:03, moonrise 6:49, moonset 18:32. Here the moon will set just 13 minutes after the sun, and beside it will rise even 1 minute earlier than its source of light. This new crescent will be too thin to be sighted on this date, even with a telescope leading us to consider the data for the 18th. Sunrise 6:49, sunset 18:20, new moon 10:03, moonrise 7:20, moonset 19:21. The new crescent on this date will not need an added eye to be sighted. Besides growing for more than 33 hours, it will give 1 hour and 1 minute for the skygazers to observe it before setting under the horizon. So far we got it all right, but shouldn't we consider another location in some part of the world to figure out if we are on the same lunar phase cycle? For this, we have chosen Houston, Texas to drop our pin in. It would be of an advantage to choose different dates for the experiments, but since we have other things to bring to light, we will stay on the same calendar dates for our new location. Date 18th of January 1984, sunrise 7:17, waxing full moon 8:05, moonset 7:31, then 8:25 on the next day. We can notice here that for this location, the moon is not setting as the night is retreating on the 18th, nor is it setting as the morning is breaking on the next day, but a little later. Date 2nd of February 1984. Sunrise 7:11, waning full moon on 1st 17:46, moonrise 7:14, the previous day, then 7:53. Here again, the same anomaly is striking for moonrises, and worst, the waning full moon is occurring a day earlier. Then we must consider that the same pattern is not taking place for this far west location compared to that eastern one. This is due to the time difference caused by the sun rising earlier in the east than the west. Let's frame ourselves then within the data proper to this location in America. For date 18th January 1984, sunrise 7:17, waxing full moon 8:05, moonset 6:31 on 17th and 8:25 on the 19th. We had to center the chosen date for this location to find the moon movements following that of the sun, still not breaking the general rule. The moon had become visibly full at 8:05 on 18th in the time frame between when it has set as the night is retreating 6:31, that is before the sunrise, and after the morning has broken 8:25, that is after the sunrise. For date 2nd of February 1984, sunrise 7:11, waning full moon on 1st, 1746, moonrise 6:31 on 31st January and 7:53 on 2nd of February. Here still, we had to center the date of the full moon to find the moon movements following that of the sun. The moon had become invisibly full at 1746 on 1st, in the time frame between when it has risen, as the night is retreating, 6:31, that is before the sunrise, and after the morning has broken, 7:53, that is after the sunrise. The general rule was still obeyed. Moving on to determine the first night of the new crescent of this same location, we will need to consider sunrise 7:11, sunset 17:59, new moon 17:46 on 1st, moonrise 7:14 on 1st, then 7:53 the next day, moonset 17:48 on 1st, then 18:43 the next day. This new crescent could not have been sighted on the 1st February, not only because of the very thin size, born just 13 minutes before sunset, but also because it set even before sunset. In revenge, on the 2nd, it wouldn't be a problem for the naked eye to sight it, as long as the view on the sky is clear. NB, the east and west sighted the new crescent on the same February 2nd, 1984, the east with telescope and the west with naked eye, much normal as the moon had an extra 9 hours to grow in size before the sun got to set in the western hemisphere. When we get to lay a comparative lunar calendar of the east and west, we can notice that the more late the sun gets to set in a location, the more likely that location will get a day in advance to sight the moon. But this happens just once in a combination of 2 months counting 59 days. However, from the entire globe, not a single place will lag more than a day to sight a new crescent, or else they are in manifest error. We can deduct from this theory the same month could count 29 days in the western hemisphere, but the eastern one will need an additional day to sight the new crescent to total the month 30 days. Then on the following month, both sides will sight the new crescent on the same day, making that month 30 days for the west, having taken a lead in the previous month, and 29 days for the east. The moon phenomenon with this complexity should be observed with care. Either keep telescopes for sighting all year long or the naked eye. But we should not swing around, or else we could miss a day of the true cosmic calendar. Where this geographical boundary lays is a subject of scrutiny, and how it behave in lands where the sun has an abnormal rising and setting should also be treated with exception. Diagram table. Now one may argue nothing stays forever. Do you know when this order will change? And yes, we have been informed by the Creator from His revelation. It is true, He revealed. Surah 14 verses 32 to 4. It is Allah who created the multiverse and sent down rain from the sky and produced thereby some fruits as provision for you and subjected for you the ships to sail through the sea by His command, and subjected for you the rivers, and He subjected for you the sun and the moon continuously, and subjected for you the night and the day, and He gave you from all you asked of Him, and if you should count the favor of Allah, you could not enumerate them. Indeed, mankind is most unjust and ungrateful. He, the Almighty, has made it clear. He subjected the sun and moon for us, so our use of them for counting periods won't cease as long as humans still living on earth. But that does not mean they are eternal. They will certainly be destroyed, as verses of the Holy Book stipulated the demise of all beings and the universe itself. Surah 55 verses 26 to 27. Everything upon it will perish, and there will remain the face of your Lord, owner of majesty and honor. But the ultimate trigger of this would be the blowing in the trumpet, a metaphor from our understanding, a mighty event that will accelerate entropy and set this last, longing order to come to an end. Surah 39 verse 68, "And it will be blown in the trumpet, and whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth will fall apart, except what Allah wills. Then it will be blown again, and at once they will be standing, looking on." From this crucial moment, humans will come to understand that their end has drawn near, and so does the end of all living things. Not just them, but also objects of the universe. Our moon will not be spared. Surah 75 verses 6 to 13, he asks, "When is the day of resurrection, when vision is dazzled, and the moon falls off? Then the sun and the moon are brought together. Man will say on that day, 'Where is the escape?' No, there is no refuge. To your Lord that day is the permanence. Man will be informed that day of what he sent forth and left behind." After death comes resurrection, but in between are events that no humans will get to witness. One of them is that of the moon falling off orbit from the earth and eventually leading the sun to devour our natural satellite. But how that would happen without our home earth going through the same fate? The answer is in the Revelation. Surah 69 verses 13 to 15. "Then when it will be blown in the trumpet, the first blow, and the earth and the mountains are transported and leveled with one blow, then on that day the occurrence will occur." That's the phenomenon. The earth within it, its load, humans and other being fitted for judgment, is going to be transported to the universe of standing. And with the ongoing disorder, the massive sun will get to eat up all its satellites, our moon included. The death of the universe has just started. I don't know for whose sake humans need to be questioned. When will we take a break and ponder for just a while? How could all these scientific facts and theories be known by an illiterate man of the desert? Even more not today, but in the 7th century. Many discoveries are yet to be decoded from what he has recited to us. We, on this path, are believers that he has been inspired by the All-Knower, the Creator, Lord of the Mighty Throne.